I would like to say this. Chiwenga's future hinges on whether he can make himself politically relevant. His popularity gives him leverage, but popularity alone does not translate into power. Without caucuses within ZANU-PF, without institutional backing, and without external alliances, he remains vulnerable to President Mnangagwa's dominance, and President Mnangagwa is very, very dominant. Today we explore the political problems facing Zimbabwe's Vice President, Constantino Chiwenga. This former general turned politician is now one of the most popular politicians in Zimbabwe. Ironically, it is for that very reason, for that very popularity, that he is struggling politically within ZANU-PF. No good deed goes unpunished, I believe. Anyway, why am I talking about Chiwenga today? The reason is because of the recent fallout between himself and President Mnangagwa, which has culminated in the recent Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3, or CAP 3. This amendment has extended Mnangagwa's term of office and sidelined Chiwenga as the anointed successor to Mnangagwa. The question then is this: what are the options available to VP Chiwenga moving forward? Is he poised to reinvent himself and reclaim his position? Or is this the end of his political career? Welcome to Camberwell, the podcast, and I'm your host, Norman Amedu. Now, in my view, the VP's biggest mistake when he entered politics was his failure to build his own strong networks and caucuses and alliances within ZANU-PF and within the business community. Instead, he remained more of a soldier than a politician, and carried the view that he still held power within the military, even though he had retired. And I believe it is this mistaken view of his military influence that led to his politically disastrous public reproach to President Mnangagwa and Mnangagwa's team. I say disastrous or politically disastrous public reproach. This was done through a number of speeches and sermons that the Vice President gave over the last 2 years, in which he talked about corruption or anti-corruption, he talked about misgovernance, he talked about economic reform. And in these speeches, he made a point to castigate some of the people who are very close to President Mnangagwa. He even went as far as labeling some of them the Gananda in Shona, which in English means a leech or leeches, meaning that they're leeching off the people. These speeches were very popular with the public and elevated Chiwenga's political standing. But to the president and his men, this was a very public humiliation. And then they didn't take it lightly. And soon they started efforts to challenge Chiwenga's political position within the presidency, accompanied by efforts to isolate him politically. In essence, as I see it, CAP 3, of course, among other things, among other motivations, was a retaliation and humiliation against VP Chiwenga and an instrument to expose his political weakness. I believe that in confronting the president and the men around the president, Chiwenga failed to take into account especially these three things. The first thing was that his own power within the military was now diminished, and most of the generals that he once commanded had now pledged allegiance and loyalty to the president. So he, Chiwenga, no longer had the power that he thought he had. The second thing he failed to take into account was that the president and his people are extremely powerful and extremely wealthy. They can buy anyone's patronage. They can influence politics in a way that Chiwenga himself and the people around him cannot. The third thing he failed to take into account is that by reproaching the president and his men, the president himself and his men started to view Chiwenga as a threat. And as we all know, no one wants to be succeeded or wants to leave power in the hands of someone they view as a potential threat or a potential enemy, who could use that power to extract revenge or to prosecute them after they'd left office. More so, Chiwenga himself is admired as a liberation warrior and is seen as a man of principle. This makes them fear him even more. Anyway, what are his options moving forward? And what's next for VP Chiwenga? In my view, he faces three options. Option number one, he can leave ZANU-PF and form a new party. This is an extreme option, but with his level of popularity, he could attract a lot of support from ZANU-PF's disillusioned supporters and also from opposition supporters who are drifting without a party and without a leader. The challenge for him with this option is financial, as it will require a lot of money and a heavy set of political skill to set up a political party strong enough to challenge ZANU-PF. Option number two, he could remain within ZANU-PF, but work on building his own political caucus and support from within. This is the more realistic option, and it also means he could challenge for leadership at the next ZANU-PF elective Congress. But what does it take to build a caucus within ZANU-PF? I believe you start by mapping out the existing groups within the party to know who's whom and who's likely to side with you. The main target being those who feel left behind within ZANU-PF, and those who feel shortchanged within ZANU-PF, and those disgruntled and disillusioned by the current ZANU-PF and the current system, and those who have been sidelined by this new constitutional amendment bill, number 3, CAD 3. A parallel process needs to be conducted outside ZANU-PF to bring more members into the party. Even though the new members might not be allowed to vote in internal processes, you still need those people or those members to make a lot of noise and to influence existing members. Another process will be to energize the rural base. We all know that ZANU draws its main support from rural voters. More importantly, there has to be a process to forge alliances within SADC and the wider Africa, especially with liberation movements across the continent. This will give the Vice President legitimacy as a statesman and will strengthen his bargaining power within ZANU-PF itself and within the wider public. The challenge you will face with this move is that President Mnangagwa and those around him will see this move as a direct threat to them and would act to stop him or attempt to stop him. Remember that the president and his people have immense financial resources at their disposal. So Chiwenga would need to plan this move very, very carefully moving forward. Option number 3 will be to do nothing but remain as vice president and become a symbolic figure and continue to speak for the people from within the party. But with this path, with this option, it will lead him into irrelevance, as people will eventually get tired of hearing the same things over and over without clear action. So in conclusion, I would like to say this. Chiwenga's future hinges on whether he can make himself politically relevant. His popularity gives him leverage, but popularity alone does not translate into power. Without caucuses within ZANU-PF, without institutional backing, and without external alliances, he remains vulnerable to President Mnangagwa's dominance, and President Mnangagwa is very, very dominant. For me, I'm seeing a man caught between the barracks, where he used to be, where he once was as a general, and the ballot box, where he is now as a politician. And a man caught between mass appeal, which he has the support of the people, and his own institutional weakness, which is weakness within ZANU-PF and within the government. His next move will determine whether he remains a footnote in Mnangagwa's rule or whether he carves out a lasting legacy in Zimbabwe's political history. Chiwenga himself once said, "Our fallen heroes are watching us. Their blood demands integrity." The question is now whether he can live up to that belief or whether President Mnangagwa and his people will determine or define Zimbabwe's political trajectory moving forward. I'm Norman Amidu, and thank you very much for watching. And please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe so that I can grow the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.